All right, so today we have the Sinclair ZX81. This is a pretty legendary computer, especially overseas in the UK. Didn't sell quite as well over here for some very obvious reasons. But yes, this is actually a Sinclair ZX81. It's in disguise. It's in a lovely wooden case. And when you see it like this, you think to yourself, gee, that actually looks appealing. Like, that looks like something I wouldn't mind using. Now, I personally never really had any contemporary experience with this thing. This is the Timex Sinclair 1000, which is pretty much the same computer, but a North American version. I remember seeing it in computer stores, just one of many items on a shelf, and I didn't know anybody that had one. And even back then, even as a 7 or 8 year old, I kind of looked at it and went, like, that's not a computer. Like, who would use this? This thing looks like a toy. But it did stick in my brain all these years because, you know, you can't really forget these things once you've seen them. They're just such a unique looking little machine. And eventually, of course, being a collector, I had to have one. And of course, I'd seen all kinds of neat software that had been made for it and that I never really knew about. So it was a fun little system to explore. But it's not a system that I use very much because I just don't like the keyboard. Like, it's just, I understand why this keyboard happened. I understand the whole history behind it. And when you think about it, you know, this computer basically had a mission, and the mission was to build a computer as cheaply as possible. The late 70s were not happy times in the UK. There was a lot of labor strife. There was a lot of inflation going on. There was a lot of recessionary stuff going on. I read somewhere that the purchasing power of the average Briton, I think that's the right word to use, compared to their American counterpart was something like 60%. So someone in Britain could only buy with their pound 60% of what an American could buy with their dollar. And the market basically evolved in a way that favored small, cheap machines like the Science of Cambridge Mark 14, and then the ZX81's older brother, the ZX80, and then of course the ZX81. But over here in North America, where I guess we were a little richer at the time, the prevailing trends were Commodore and IBM and so on. So yeah, like I said, this is just something that caught my eye as a kid. I noticed it, I remembered it all these years, and I finally went and got one. And like I said, I don't use it very often. So I was cruising eBay. This is a theme here. And I saw this thing come up, and it was basically 30 bucks. And it said it was a Sinclair ZX81, not a Timex Sinclair 1000, a ZX81, which is the original model. And they did actually release some NTSC compatible ZX81s into the North American market. I don't know if the NTSC ZX81 was being sold concurrently with the Timex Sinclair 1000, you know, if they were kind of competing against each other or being sold under different models in different distribution networks. I'm not really sure what the whole story is. I think, from what I recall, the ZX81 came first, and then there was the whole deal with Timex, and it got rebranded into this. But don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But this is a ZX81. This is a ZX81 that someone has gone to considerable effort to make a little more enjoyable. So yeah, this is a ZX81 in a totally custom wood case. Basically, the previous owner got some project wood together, some glue, and they basically just put it together like one of those balsa wood kits that you get for making airplanes or something. And they did a really great job. I mean, I think it looks fantastic. And it had a buy it now price of $30, so I immediately jumped on that because I was like, yeah, that's just really, really cool looking. I mean, doesn't that look like a nice computer? Doesn't that look so much better and more appealing than that? Like, it's just not even close. And of course, the builder was basically doing what a lot of people were doing back then and getting an aftermarket keyboard just to make the typing experience a whole lot less miserable. If I was playing a ZX81 game, I would way rather have this keyboard than the other thing. But yeah, it kind of goes to show, you know, how you can take something that's rather unspectacular and unappealing and turn it into something that actually is with just a little bit of effort. The keyboard here, you can see basically is a totally custom job. you've got a black key top underneath, and then you've got this see-through key top, kind of like a slip cover that goes over it. And then you've basically got all of your Sinclair specific function keys labeled and pressed in there. Yeah, I mean, I think it looks great. I'm assuming the labels themselves probably were a kit that were provided by the keyboard maker. It kind of reminds me of the keyboard of another computer, the APF Pecos 1. That's a kind of a very, very rare machine. Kind of looks like a 4-story apartment building with a keyboard, but yeah, that's what it totally reminds me of. And you know, the typeability on it, it's not bad. I mean, it feels like pretty much any other vintage 80s home computer keyboard. And you can kind of see that a bit of forethought went into this. You know, you've got your little power LED there. You've got a whole bunch of RCA plugs on the side here. Presumably those were intended to be for tape in and tape out. And not really sure what the third one's for. And then this obviously would have been your cable out for if you were using it with a television set. And then this would be where the power went in. And then obviously this is your video out, which you can see I've adapted because it's this older style of composite connector. And then basically you take one of these adapters and you just connect it up there. And then you've got the RCA jack style instead. And then at the bottom, basically it's just a panel that screws on. There's 5 screws holding it together right now. That's all that I got. It looks like he kind of had screws in different places over the years, and I guess maybe the project board's a little thin and broke away, so the screws weren't holding anymore. So just kind of kept adding new ones around there. And it's got holes cut out here, here, and here, which I think are to pass through cables. Although you might not need to do that if you have the ports and everything wired up on the outside. And then lastly, he's put a hole here, I'm guessing just for the ventilation for the bottom, and also to provide a convenient means of switching channels on the television set that it uses. So yeah, you know, it's just a really nice little wood case, and yeah, that's totally what sold me on it. It was like 30 bucks, and I went, yeah, I'm gonna have that. Now, I've mentioned passing my Timex Sinclair 1000 on the shelf. For years now, I've also been passing this one because this is basically a stock ZX81. When we open this up, you'll see right away why it's been left stock. There's not a lot of room in this case to do expansions. And if you've ever seen the expansion pack on either the TS1000 or on the ZX81, you know that it's pretty tall. And unfortunately, this case does not have enough room to fit that in. The unit sits about there, and the way that things are configured to hold it in place, you can't fit this in. So that was a problem that I didn't really know how to solve for a while. Now I could try and solve my fitment problem with the expansion pack by simply modifying the case. But I've always had a reluctance to mess with original vintage work. I know this isn't, you know, made by anybody famous that we know of, but still I have a reluctance touching or changing things from what the original builder intended. So I'm kind of inclined to just leave it alone that way. The other reason I'm not really keen on modifying the case is because this is fairly thin project wood. And my big fear is, you know, just a slip of the drill or chisel or whatever, or hammer, and kaboom, the whole thing comes apart, or I end up with a hole in it somewhere. So that was the other thinking. There's not a lot of room for error there. And that's kind of had me in a bind, so I kind of put the thing up on a shelf along with my other vintage computing equipment, and, you know, just kind of walked by it once in a while I pondered a solution to the problem. And I thought I had one. I found this on eBay. This is basically... well, it's basically this, but what they've done is they've taken the two boards out, soldered them together, and then they've put this right angle connector on it here, so that basically when you plug it into your ZX81 or your TS1000 on the back, you'll see here, it basically fits like that. Now, they were doing this for their own purposes. They had some kind of, I think in the description he said it was some kind of animatronic device or something like that, powered by a ZX81. It's pretty terrifying. But yeah, they needed to have the room. I guess they just didn't have the room this way, so they made it go this way. So I thought, yeah, that's gonna work. That'd be perfect, right? It just folds back under the device and there we go, we're done. But unfortunately, when you compare it to the case, you can see the height is pretty darn close. And of course, when I opened the case, merrily anticipating putting this in and finally being able to use this thing, I realized, unfortunately, that it just wasn't gonna work. This was basically gonna be sticking out of the bottom of the case. So scratch that, and basically that's how things sat for another few months until one of these came up. Now, I didn't know about these third-party memory packs for the ZX81, but here it is. This is a 16 kilobyte memory pack. Apparently they make these all the way up to, I think I've seen one that was 64 kilobytes, which is a heck of a lot of RAM for a ZX81. And unlike the Timex or the Sinclair expansion pack, you can actually piggyback cartridges onto this one. So you can piggyback two 16 kilobytes, or they've got a Centronics interface, I'm not sure what MRG stands for, and then a memory interface. So these guys were really into expanding the ZX81 into something useful. And yeah, I thought, and I was looking at the picture and I was like, yeah, that looks a lot shorter than the Timex or Sinclair expansion pack. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go for this and and we'll see what happens. So I got this and it's in its box, which is really nice. Still has the original manual in here. And you can see it's wider. So they've basically gone for width over height. And believe it or not, that inch or so, I think, is enough to make the difference. So we're gonna give this a try. You can see it's got the teeth on the back here for other expansion cartridges to be plugged in. And it's got some dip switches, which I'm not sure what those do. So yeah, that's the first thing that we're gonna deal with. All right, so the second problem with this machine is the original owner tapped it for composite output. Oh, I just did that again, didn't I? I meant to say composite. I've been saying composite ever since I was a kid, and it's just a force of habit. So you have to forgive me if I keep saying that. We can make a fun little drinking game out of it. Every time I say composite instead of composite, take a drink, but make sure it's not too stiff a drink, because probably I'm gonna say that a few times in this video. Anyway, the composite output that has been tapped from this to the monitor here is, as you can see, quite weak. It's not very bright. I've got the brightness cranked all the way on this monitor, and that's basically all you can see. If you look in the bottom left corner, you can just faintly see the little K there. I can type here. 10 print, you can just barely see it. Hopefully it comes through in the 4K version of this video if it doesn't come through in the lower resolutions. But yeah, that's basically a consequence of tapping the video that way. The ZX81 was never intended to have direct composite output. It was actually intended to be used with a television set. And from what I understand, the Ferranti ULA chip that Sinclair used for this machine cannot crank up the brightness high enough for a direct composite signal to be used. So it just wasn't intended to be used that way, basically. However, at some point they came out with a later revision of the ULA chip. And I don't know if it was deliberate or just a happy accident, but this chip, once installed, actually will crank up the brightness quite a bit so that you can use composite output with a composite monitor. And the reason I prefer to use composite monitors, I just like plugging in a composite monitor. I really gotta stop saying that. Everyone's gonna lose this drinking game if I don't. Oh look, a liver, Limburger, and MP sandwich. You know, a lot of people hate Limburger, but I kind of like that dead skunk taste. And the way the liver slithers between your teeth like a garden slug. Not bad at all. Just because it's just a little easier. You don't have to fuss around with channels and tuning and all that other stuff. And I think it looks pretty great with a little 9-inch monitor like this. So yeah, we're gonna basically upgrade the ULA here while we're at it. And hopefully we can get some more brightness, because I mean, right now this is absolutely cranked, and yeah, that's just not gonna work. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna flip this over like so. We'll just take a few screws out here to lift it off. All right, we'll just lift it off there. And there we go. There is our ZX81, and there's our keyboard. So you can see there were a few things that were hooked up and some things that appear to have never been hooked up. I was speculating that the DIN port on the back here was intended for power, and it looks like it may or may not have had a power connection at one time. I didn't have a 9-volt DC power supply with a connector that would fit that, so I didn't bother restoring that. I basically just plug in here and then feed the wire through one of the holes here. And that seems to work just fine. It's not convenient, of course, because it means I have to unplug the thing from the wall receptacle rather than under here, but you know, that's a trivial difference. And you can see that, you know, basically he's created a cradle for it here. And this machine was basically just held in place with tape. This is my tape because I've had this out already once or twice. And we got our keyboard PCB here. It's a pretty basic keyboard. All the decoding is done by the ZX81, so there's no circuitry or anything other than the key switches themselves. You can see he's got the RF or TV out connected here to this coax connector. But he doesn't appear to have anything connected to these phono plugs on the outside here, which I would have assumed he intended to connect up to the tape in and out ports, just for convenient plugging and unplugging when you're working with a tape recorder, which is obviously a necessary thing with this for the most part. You can see we've got wiring for the power LED, or what I presume is the power LED here, and it's connected up also to this DIN plug, so it knows when power is coming through. And then the one weird one that I can't explain is he's got this little wire here, and it's going to one of the phono plugs out here, but it's connected to the keyboard. I really don't know why you would have that, so I'll have to pull the keyboard out and have a look and see what it's actually connecting to, because that's kind of interesting. I don't really know what that does. It could be, yeah, I don't know. I mean, why would you have that connected to your keyboard? This is the switch that's attached to here, which is TP. Tape power, something along those lines. Anyway, we'll have to break that out, but you can see it's got this black key that says TP. Not really sure what TP would stand for, but I have some ideas. And it looks like it was done by one of those Dymo punch label thingies from way back when. I actually had one of those as a kid. I used to love those. Let's just take the keyboard off here because I'm real curious to see what exactly we've got. A little bit of rust, but not bad. I'm just going to lift this very carefully. You can see the ribbon cable that connects everything. I'll just very gently disconnect that. And these cables, thankfully, are quite a bit thicker than the Sinclair originals, which is nice. Okay, so here's our keyboard. And it looks like it was made by, I don't know if that's DK or CK Computer Keyboards. Is it a stack pole? Yes, it's a stack pole. You know, I thought this felt kind of familiar as I was typing on it there. And yeah, you can totally see, if you're looking at the key top, it's got these little ridges on the inside. Basically, you can use a tool to break this out and then change the label in here, which is basically just paper. So that's interesting. Yeah, somebody basically took a stack pole key matrix and then made their own board for it. I imagine these were sold. This is says ISS 3, so this is the third revision of this. Probably, issue is kind of a popular term from the UK. Over here we tend to use words like revision, but these guys use issue, so I'm going to guess this keyboard PCB might have come from England originally. It's where a lot of ZX81 accessories would come from. You can see the reinforcements for around the keyboard here, just to protect the thing from cracking apart. So the first thing I'm going to do here, because I want to know before I go any further on this, is if this will help me out of my memory problem and if it will fit in here. Looking at it, I'm not sure. This may not work. It may not have enough room back here, but we'll see. Now, they're configuration jumpers of some kind, obviously. Here's our guide. Okay. What about the switch settings? There are two possible modes for using the MemoPack 16K, Master and Slave. The mode you require depends on which of the possible memory configurations you are using. So basically, you can have the MemoPack alone, you can have it as a Master plus a Slave, you can have it as a Master with a Sinclair 16K pack as a Slave, and you can have a MemoPack 32 kilobyte as the Master with a 16K Slave. So you can get up to about 48K on these, I guess. Now, if your MemoPack 16K is being used as a Master, alone or with a Slave pack attached somewhere behind, then switches 2 and 3 should be on. And I think you would concur that that is how that is set, so that's perfect. All right, so next thing we'll do is unscrew the case so we can swap out the ULA. It's handy having these mounts to hold the thing in place for you. And you can see where they've tapped the board for the composite signal right there. All right, and that's the chip we're after. And here is our other chip. This is the upgraded ULA. It looks like everything got in there okay. All right. And installation is the reverse of disassembly. Okay, just make sure the ribbon cable is still in there good. All my farting around. We'll just get her back together here. Okay, now before we go complicating things further by adding the memory pack, the first thing I'm going to do is actually turn on my screen and just verify that I've got a decent picture and that everything is working. All right, here we go. Should we get it in the right hole though? Oh, look at that. That is a big difference right there. Yeah, I mean, that's not perfect, but that's much better than it was. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is see if it will come up with the memo pack installed and if it will actually fit in here. So let's have a look at that next. So I'll unplug. Okay, so let's just see if this thing will fit first. So this goes like that. down. Yeah, no, that'll work. That will actually work. Look at that, I don't even have to cut up the case or anything. Now, since I'm already getting into soldering here to fix my little boo-boo, I think I might as well actually solder up these RCA phono plugs here, just so that I can have a continuous connection between the ear and mic ports to the outside. And then I don't have one more set of cables coming out of the bottom of the machine that I have to mess around with, or if I have to borrow them for some reason. I'll just make this permanent, and then I can detach or attach them from the outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cable here and I'm basically just going to cut it in half, and each end will go into the ear and mic ports, and then I'll solder on the other ends to the RCA jack or phono plugs. I believe the way these cables work, these are stereo cables, so the red and white are the left and right channels, and then this is the ground. I'm going to plug them in the order that I see them, that way I'll remember which side is which. Alright, let's check once more. We'll just make sure that I didn't break the keyboard. Let's flip this on its side for now. Ah, it's sticking out the bottom. That's not good. It's always good to be that one cable that gets stuck in the wrong place on the way back to installing. Hopefully I didn't break anything while I was doing that. Alright, there's our K, our special K. Yeah, the keyboard looks like it's working properly. So I'll just screw some stuff back together here, and yeah, we'll be good to go. Okay, so that was a fun little hour and a half off camera. So the first problem I ran into were these jacks on the side here, where I chose to use basically stereo wiring, like a line in with 3.5mm jacks on either end, which I basically took one of and cut in half and then soldered the ends internally. And I was hoping that by connecting the left and right channels and then soldering those to the inner pin and the ground to the outer pin, that would just work. And I think it would have, except somewhere in the past they've actually seemed to have changed what 3.5mm means, or maybe there's a different measurement. When you look at them up close, they look pretty darn similar, but they're not. And these newer ones do not sit properly in the ZX81. They are almost completely loose. So yeah, that was never going to work. That was a bit of a problem. I had a few little problems with the composite connector on the back. When I was moving things around, unfortunately, the connection to the ground actually broke off the connector on the back, so I had to resolder that. While I was in there, I decided to fix that up and clean it up because it was quite a nasty mess of solder and wire. So that's fixed. You can see we've got a nice, beautiful picture on our composite monitor here. So everything is working pretty much shipshape. Just for fun, we'll try programming something just to see how it comes out. For I, and this is just my favorite counting loop. Now you can see the screen distorts a little bit as you type on the bottom. I think there's probably some issues with the way that they tapped in. I noticed there was there's no capacitor or resistor attached on one side of the transistor there, so I think it's just slightly off, but oh, no, it rejected that. Now why is that? All right, so I can admit it, I'm an idiot. I actually went to Facebook and asked around on this one, and I had completely forgotten that pretty much all the commands and operators for Sinclair Basic are stored as basically codes in the system. So even the word to, believe it or not, is stored as a code. And the reason for that is due to the ZX81's paltry 1 kilobyte of memory. It's actually more efficient if all the commands are stored as complete commands rather than having the user type them out. If you type them out, it takes up basically more memory. And in fact, as I'm looking at the manual here, it says, you must remember that it is useless trying to spell these words out in full because the computer just won't understand. You gotta love that British directness. It's like they don't try to sugarcoat it and say, oh, unfortunately you can't actually type out commands because the computer has limited memory and these are some of the design choices that were made in order to ensure the computer could be kept at an affordable cost. No, they basically just say it's useless. Like, don't even try it. So for this to work, basically what we have to do is do this. And then instead of me typing 2, I actually want to find the word 2, which is shift and number 4, and then put in my number, and now it accepts it. So that's one of the drawbacks, I guess, of having this keyboard is because it's a normal keyboard, your brain kind of wants to just type normally, and you can't do that with it. Because even though the keyboard's changed and it's a whole lot friendlier, you still have the memory limitation and you still have to find the correct keys for commands, operators, and so on. So we'll just finish this up here. It's a bit annoying, you know, when you have a real keyboard in front of you, you tend to want to type. I find I'm much faster typing out the commands than I am actually using their shortcuts, but it is what it is. And there we go. You can see it's working just fine there. Okay, so next up, we got our little spy pad here, and I think we should load up, I'm gonna load up a couple games. I don't want this video to get too long, but we gotta try at least a game or two to see how it looks. And I'm thinking 3D Monster Maze would be a good one to start with. That was the very first game that I was really interested in playing on the ZX81 because it was hyped as a horror game. And yeah, it's actually pretty cool. I mean, considering the limitations of this computer, the way the game builds up the suspense and keeps you on your toes worrying about where the T-Rex is, that's pretty cool. And you know, it's kind of a lost art now because, you know, we've got all the fancy graphics and everything today, but back in those days they didn't, and they had to put a whole lot more effort into the gameplay. So let's, we're gonna load. I think I remember how to do this. Just like that. There we go. Open this up. then the screen should change in a second as it starts to go. Yeah, there we go. Normally I'd be doing this with my phone, but I'm using my phone as my camera, and my phone's USB-C, and then you got to adapt everything, and it's just a pain in the neck, so we're not going to do that. And now we wait. Well, actually, I'm going to wait. We can just teleport you to the future thanks to the magic of video editing. Anyone there? Why, yes. Yes, we are. Picture looks pretty good. It's a little bit off to the left there. Let's see if I can pull it over. There, that's a little better. The screen's got a few boo-boos, but we'll live with that. Roll up, roll up. See the amazing Tyrannosaurus Rex, king of the dinosaurs, in his lair. Perfectly preserved in silicon since prehistoric times, he's brought to you for your entertainment and exhilaration. If you dare to enter his lair, you do so at your own risk. The management accepts no responsibility for the health and safety of the adventurer who enters his realm. The management advise that this is not a game for those of a nervous disposition. If you're in any doubt, press stop. If instructions are needed to proceed, then press list. Otherwise, press continue. Challenge accepted. Hopefully having real keys will give me a bit of a leg up on this dinosaur. The mists of time will pass over you for about 30 seconds while transporting you to the lair of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's a clever way of saying the ZX81 is really slow, so you're going to have to wait for a little bit while I set things up. Yeah, the first time I ran into this, I hadn't read that screen and I thought the thing was crashing, and I probably reloaded it like 10 times before I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's what it's supposed to do. I've never really been clear on what the objective of the game is. I think you're supposed to keep running around until you get to a new maze or something, but I'm not sure how the point system works. Supposedly, I've heard that you can rack up points by basically getting the T-Rex to come up behind you and kind of follow you around and just stay a few steps ahead. Because apparently you can run faster than a T-Rex. It doesn't seem very realistic. Well, none of this seems very realistic, but yeah, supposedly you just want to keep the T-Rex on your tail, you know, close enough that he can see you, but not close enough that he can eat you, and supposedly that brings up the points. I don't know about you, but if it were me and I were in a maze with a T-Rex, I'd be wanting points for just not being seen at all. So, let's see. He is hunting for you. I bet he is. Okay, so the keys are a little funny. No, apparently I can't go that way, so I'll go this way. Oops. Footsteps approaching. That's him. That's it. Uh-oh. No. Run. Okay, these keys are not an advantage at all. No. Who designed this keyboard? Uh-oh. Run, 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 run. Oh yeah, see the score going up? He's right on my heels. And this thing is like... Yeah, I'm not getting eaten, pal. Oh, no. No, no, no. Other way, other way, other way. Turn, turn, turn. Run. Thank God I can run faster than a T-Rex. Uh-oh. We're screwed. That's it. Well, that was a quick game. I want to appeal and try this again. Alright, let's try this. It's just because the darn keys are in the wrong, like, it'd be way better if they used the WASD X layout or something. This is just frustrating because your ups on this side, your downs on that side, and your left and right are on the outside. I hear footsteps. Oh, good. And once again, I turned the wrong way. This is like the Blair Witch Project. I'm just facing the wall. Nope. Nope. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Run around. Time to run. Time to run. Time to run. Come on, man. I'm just gonna run straight to the end of the maze. Come on. Nope, wrong way, wrong way. All right, well that's that game. Let's try one other one. Like I said, not the most realistic T-Rex human encounter simulation. Pretty sure the T-Rex could probably smell you all the way across the maze, and if he did, he'd just bust through the walls and take your out before you even had a chance to do anything. For one more, we'll try, I don't know how to pronounce it, if it's Mazogs or Mazogs, but we'll open that up there. And we'll pause it, and then we'll do load. This is a 5-minute load time. Can you imagine having that kind of patience, waiting 5 minutes for something to load? But thankfully, you don't have to do that. We'll be right back. All right, here we go. Yeah, I've never really played this one before, so I understand it to be basically like a D&D type thing. We are running around in an underground labyrinth and you're trying to find treasure or something. And you're dealing with really large cockroaches. Actually, I had a couple of those in a townhouse I rented in Florida once, so.
Hey kids, why don't you guys go in and pick your rooms, and Mom and I are going to go check out the beach.
I should be good at this. I'm just gonna do, I don't know, let's face a challenge. Use keys W, A, D, and X. Okay, well see, these guys set this up right, so now having actual keys in this one I think will be an advantage. It wasn't so much on the other one. I found the key response on the other one was a little bit on the slow side, but all right, there's our maze. I find sometimes I have to press a couple times to get going there. Moves to the treasure, 160. You have 640 moves to go. You gain 64. Okay, so the idea is I have to get to the treasure before running out of moves, or I have to get to it within 160 moves? I'm not sure. Let's just do this. Okay. Now, how do we get that sword? Can I just, this guy goes left, goes right, or do I have my other left and my other right? Let's just see. Oh, okay. So now I've got a sword. So how do you use it? Oh, yeah. See, it doesn't quite register the keys 100% perfectly. Oh, yeah, I don't, did I die? What? Oh, okay. So apparently you don't actually wield the sword, you just sort of leap onto whoever you're gonna attack with the sword, and it just sort of goes from there. Oh, what are these shady looking things? I don't know if Can I go in there? Oh, they're like guides or something. Oh, and there's another one of these. We'll just leap on him. Well, that's kind of cheating in a way. Ah! Okay, well I didn't have a sword, so that didn't work out well. What? Okay. Or did I have a sword? I don't know, I have to check the footage after. I didn't think I did. Okay, so there's the next sword. That's impressive if you fought that thing without a sword. That's how I had to fight those cockroaches down in Florida though, so. Okay, let's go see the Oracle or whatever that is. Which way is the way? This way. I love cheats. Makes life so much easier. This way. This way. Whoops. I don't think I had a sword. Yeah, he won. Death to all treasure. Oh, that's not nice. That's not cool. Okay, well, let's try this again. M to examine the maze. Oh, I see. So that's where I went. And I guess I ended up dead over there. I don't know where the treasure is, though. Oops. I think I broke out of it. Holy cow. Okay. I find I have to like hit or hold the key down fairly hard in order for it to register. I don't think that's a problem with the keyword, because when I was typing in BASIC, it's not an issue, but I think when the computer's busy and it slows down, it doesn't quite register the key presses as quickly. And here we go with the sit rep again. 127 moves to treasure, and I have 508 moves to go. You gain 50 for a kill. Oh, you can buy a sword. Well, that would be handy. Sheesh. Okay. But why would you buy something you can get for free? There's one of those Oracle things. Yeah, you're out of here, pal. Should have just given him a can of raid, then he could attack from a distance. Oops. Well, I guess you get one opportunity to fight without a sword, and that was probably it. Okay, let's get a hint here. Yep, I was going the wrong way. That sounds like me. Oh man. Gotta be careful how fast you move through this maze though. I'm just trying to imagine doing this with the membrane keys. Like, no way, man. It says I can buy a sword. How do I buy a sword? I'm hitting T, but it's not. Yeah, these keys are just a little... In a game like this, you gotta be a little bit careful. Whoops. And there's my sword. Oh. Stop for directions. Thank you very much. I'll save that sword for the other side because I have a feeling I'll need it. And these fight scenes. Okay, down we go. I'm assuming I'm going the right way. It only seemed like I could go one way. Ah, I got the treasure. Now which way do I go? Oh good, I have to run this whole way back. Oh, so you can only... Oh, you can only carry the treasure or the sword at once. So now I gotta make sure I don't get eaten by one of those Mazogs. Mazogs? Mazogs? Kind of handy having a GPS in here. let him run with that treasure. Just like I would. Yeah, I had a feeling that would happen. Yes, I did it. Well, that's kind of a fun little game. I actually feels a little bit addictive. Moves allowed, moves left, score 30. Ouch. Yep. Not quite. So yeah, that kind of completes my initial task list for this machine. I wasn't successful with the with connecting the jacks on the side there. I probably should have known that wouldn't work, but it was worth a try. I will get some proper cables to deal with that. I think I will also look into wiring up the power LED, because I think that'd be just a neat thing to have. And then also maybe wiring up a power connector that plugs into the back. Maybe I could even find a way to kind of switch power on and off rather than having to unplug and replug. I know that's the proper way of doing it, but I kind of hate doing it that way. Those will definitely be some future projects. Another thing I'll probably do is figure out how to modify the 16 kilobyte memo pack so that it can do high-res graphics. I don't know if you can do that or if you have to simply buy the high-resolution graphics card that they sold as well. But right now, this machine cannot do high-res graphics. I think that's probably because that expansion card isn't wired up for that. But yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, this is a really nice computer to work with. It's amazing how just changing a couple of things, especially with the aesthetics, can make you go from pretty much ignoring something all the time to actually wanting to use it. I love the look of this thing. You know, the stack pull high-tech switches are a nice touch, much better to work with than the membrane keyboard. And yeah, just the whole aesthetic of it, it's very pleasing, it's very compact, and it just kind of makes you want to sit down and play a game like this for hours on end and kind of let the day slip away. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Oh, what is that? Tastes like beer.